Tonight on First Tuesday.
What happens if I don't raise money is there will be a lot of people on death row who die that we could have saved.
In the USA, one woman struggled to rescue convicted prisoners from Virginia's electric chair. And in Britain, more on children who wait for a transplant and their parents' anguish.
I've climbed many a mountain in my time. You get to the summit, that's great. It's coming down the other side, within darkness.
Good evening and welcome to November's First Tuesday. It's often argued that when someone close to you is murdered, you quickly lose your qualms about capital punishment. Well, tonight we tell the story of an American woman, Marie Deans, a member of whose family was murdered in 1972. But instead of revenge, Marie has since devoted her life to saving condemned prisoners in the state of Virginia from the electric chair. Nationwide, there have been 16 executions this year. Over 1,700 wait on death row. In theory, all of them are entitled to appeal, but in practice, they need an attorney. Attorneys are expensive, and in Virginia, there's no legal aid. So if you're poor, as most are, you die. Marie Deans isn't arguing that people shouldn't be punished for serious and horrible crimes. Her campaign, as we show in Death Row, a one-woman band, is to ensure that, at the very least, no one dies because he's too poor to hire a lawyer.
Tower 2, open the outside Sallyport gate. Tower 2, close the outside Sallyport gate.
Good morning, office.
This is Marie Deans. Is John Boatwright there?
He's on the phone right now, Miss Dean.
Can I hold, please?
Okay, just a moment.
Marie Deans works alone, trying to persuade lawyers to represent men on death row. Virginia provides no legal aid whatever for men appealing against the death penalty. So saying yes to Marie means donating at least 6 years' work without any hope of payment.
Hello?
John, this is Marie Deans. Are you free to talk?
Yes?
Okay. I'm calling about a case we have. This is a real good opportunity, John, because I only need local counsel. I don't need anyone who is going to have to carry the full weight of this case. Do you think you're available?
I am not available now. It's just a bad time.
Oh. All right, John. I started out by calling the attorneys who had cases and asking them who their friends were. Every time you get a turn down, you say, well, give me another name. You know, you guilt trip them into giving their friend's name, and, you know, pretty soon the guilt trips add up and you come to an attorney. I use every tactic I can think of, and I tell them the truth, which is that if they don't do it, nobody will. I'm very often left in a position where I just have days. The attorney has to help me.
Mecklenburg Maximum Security Prison, Virginia's death row.
You need to take your pants off. Say what? Since when? Since when, Will? That's how they've been doing it, right? Hell no. When they change it. We're gonna write you up for this, right? We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about it later. I'm gonna write your ass up. You ain't had to do this shit the 7 motherfucking years I've been here. Come in here and look up my asshole. No, I do not.
31 men await death at Mecklenburg. Security is paramount in a high-tech electronic world. Joe Giarratano was sentenced to electrocution for double murder. One of the longest-serving men on the row, he spent 7 years trying to beat the chair.
Justice, give me some grievous forms, then get Jones around here.
The prison would like very much to break Joe because he constantly reinforces the humanity of other men there. Every time they put Joe in a different pod, the men that he's with, their spirits lift. They begin to be more and more alive, and the prison can see that. And it's counterproductive to their job of taking life away.
Some of them consider me a leader, insubordinate, a troublemaker. I don't mind my own business. If they're hassling one of the other men, well, I'm going to speak up for them if they can't speak up for themselves. For the last 2 years, my major source of spending my time has been doing the legal work. I've had to file appeals for men who didn't have attorneys, trying to stay on top of my case as much as possible. The state provides an attorney only on direct appeal. After the direct appeal to the Virginia Supreme Court, you have 9 levels of appeal left open to you. If you can't do it yourself or find somebody to work for free, the state of Virginia will execute you without those appeals. If you have money to hire an attorney, you get the full benefits of due process.
One of the few lawyers in Virginia who is prepared to work without payment for the men on death row is Lloyd Snook.
The appeals process is a long, drawn-out process. It may last 6 years to 10 years. During this time, you've got to have a lawyer basically at every step of the way. And in most of those steps, the lawyers are totally unfunded. In the rest of the steps, they are funded only at a very minimal level. So lawyers end up having to do these cases in their odd hours, in the evenings, on weekends, because they have to obviously keep the rest of the practice together to make ends meet. I have fallen asleep on the couch in our little lobby area here more often than I would care to admit.
I think perhaps the paralegals or the associations formed specifically for the purpose of handling death penalty cases. I think perhaps they're some of the largest perverters of the law. I sometimes question their loyalty, their motives, because most of them don't get paid for it, but they do get an awful lot of publicity. And you'll find that in most instances it's young type of lawyers trying to get started, and any capital case, no matter where it's at, in Virginia or any place else, generates a lot of publicity. They themselves perhaps feel that the man deserves to die. Yet they want to carry it on to see when and where they could be the first one to hit on an excuse to have the death penalty overturned in a specific case. In other words, they dream up a new idea that's never been tried before. And it's worth millions in publicity.
Johnny Watkins' execution date has been set by the Virginia Supreme Court. Like most of the men on death row, he has no money to pay an attorney to file his appeal. Unless Marie Deans can find a lawyer who'll work without payment, he'll be executed within a matter of weeks.
Is this a situation that you could get involved in for us?
Two things. One, I got to talk to my partners.
Uh-huh.
Two, I don't know anything about criminal law.
Right.
And I have great hesitation to play with anybody's life, and I don't know a thing about criminal law.
But you do know Virginia procedure and the courts, and you wouldn't be having to do the briefs and that sort of thing.
I'm not sure I really want to do this, to tell you the truth, because I don't want to. I'm up to my ears right now. It's non-paying stuff. But I'm going to talk to my partners.
Good, Jack. I appreciate it.
Finding attorneys for people who are sentenced to death is an extremely difficult job. Marie is probably the best person I've ever seen doing this. She will wheedle, cajole, coax, shame, blackmail, arm twist, whatever it takes to get people to take these cases. At one point, she basically shamed the president of the Virginia State Bar into agreeing that his firm, one of the largest firms in the state, should take a case, something that nobody had ever been able to do before.
In June, we had 5 men with no attorneys, and 3 of them had execution dates. And in Virginia, if you don't have an attorney to file, they will kill the man. Because there's no right to appeal, they'll let us come into court if we get there, but if we don't get there on time, the man is dead. It's that simple. And I was calling practically, like up until 11 o'clock at night and starting at 7 o'clock the next morning. We came down to within 2 days, filed within 2 days on one man and within hours on another.
They simply do not get lawyers on their own. Marie is the only person at this point in Virginia who can do that. And without someone like Marie, a lot of people would end up either forfeiting various stages in their appeals or simply being executed.
Cell number 2. This inmate's been in this cell for 15 days. It's not of the execution. He will walk out this doorway to this chair. He will be placed in the chair, and the sergeant chair will shave his head. When he gets his head shaved, then he'll shave his right leg up to his knee. As soon as the head shaving is done and the leg is shaved, we remove the inmate from the chair and take him and give him a shower. He will be put in this shower. It'll take approximately 5 minutes for the shower. After the shower is completed, he will be brought out and dressed in these clothes. You may notice the shirt, the buttons have been removed, and we put Velcro on it. And the purpose is for this is the chair gets very hot. We use something about like 2,400 volts to execute the inmate. And if we don't remove the buttons, it'll burn the body. Okay, as soon as we dress him, we take him down to cell number 1. This is approximately about 3 hours and 45 minutes for the execution. This inmate will go in this cell here. Security force will be, it's approximately about 6 officers, be a watching, never move this inmate be a making. And the purposes for that is keep from committing suicide before the execution.
I don't look at dying as the end of existence. And I've generally made death one of my close advisors. It's being aware that death is right there in front of me. It makes all my actions now that much important, that much more important. And if I can beat the electric chair, I will.
I can't comprehend the fact that Joe will be executed. It's, I think for each one of us who does this kind of work, there's a kind of wall that we face all the time. I know a good friend of mine, Dick Burr, an attorney, his wall was Velma Barfield. And when Velma was killed, Dick, who had displayed incredible strength to all of us, just simply fell totally apart. He had a nervous breakdown. And it took him a year to be able to come back. I see Joe as my wall. Joe has changed so much in every way that they wouldn't be killing the man that they convicted at all. He's long since dead and gone. This is a new Joe that's come out like a phoenix, you know, out of these ashes. And he has so much to offer. When the head of the Department of Corrections said he should be on the street today, and then they would turn around and kill him. I don't know how to comprehend that. I really don't.
Most of the men are kids. They don't realize the situation they're in. Most of them don't even know when they need a lawyer, or if they don't have a lawyer. They have good street sense. Most of them are either heavily involved in drugs or just come from bad family backgrounds. I think if most of them were released right now, the majority of them would come back. Maybe not to death row, but probably to prison, because they don't fit into the system. They haven't been given a chance to become a part of society.
I'm going to be saying to myself that this not going to happen, because I'm going to have to be positive, and I know that I'm going to have to think positive. Ain't no way I can sit back and just say, well, come on with it, you know. I'm ready to die. I'm not ready to die. I don't want to die. But if it happens, you know, it'll happen. You know, I'm going to put up a fight. I ain't just going to die. I'm going to have to fight.
How are you going to do that?
I ain't got that all together yet. But it ain't going to be just come on, go with us, right? It go to handcuffs, come on, go with us, right? It ain't going to be like that.
I'm scared, you know. I try to think positive and feel optimistic, but it's hard, you know. It's real hard due to the fact that they have me here, and the mental anguish itself is enough without the electrocution. You understand what I'm saying? Just the mental anguish of being here, knowing that it's not going to be long before they strap me in that chair and execute me.
This is Virginia State Electric Chair. Time is 11 o'clock. The prisoner is brought in and strapped in the electric chair. Sergeant Dye here will explain how the man is buckled in and how he's wired for the execution.
Inmate is wired, sit in, buckle in, secure in the chair. The first thing to be connected and put on will be the leg piece. The leg piece has spring action, is fitted firmly into the inmate's leg. The cable is inserted and tightened with the wing nut, finger tight. Second step, the mask is inserted over the inmate's face, which covers his forehead, nose, and lips. Only thing exposed is his chin and lower half of his neck. The backrest has been adjusted so that you have a firm seat in the chair. Third step, the helmet is inserted on the inmate's head. It also has spring action, which gives you a tight fit. The chin strap is inserted around his chin and connected. At that point, the connecting cables is inserted, also finger tight. Final thing that is done, all the straps are checked to make sure that there's no slack and the belts are tight. Things to watch for. An inmate with A larger body build will take more amperage to kill him. He will smoke extremely due to the size of his build. The smell is pertinent. Things to do, put Vaseline in your nostrils, and you can use a Q-tip to get it out. Also, your clothes will have a smell in them, and it is suggested that your clothes be soaked in water for 2 or 3 days before they are washed, and you can reuse them again.
The things I remember most about the execution of Morris Mason, Morris was retarded and schizophrenic. It was like an 8-year-old. And the first thing I always think about is when I came back into the death house after they had prepared Morris, and they had shaved his head and his leg, and they, you know, had hooked him up with the conductor and what have you. And he had on the clothes that he would wear in the electric chair, which here they, because the doctor once scorched his finger on a button, they're not allowed to have any buttons, so they're velcroed up, and no buttons on the sleeves either. And they couldn't find anything small enough for Morris, so they had his pants all gathered up like this, and the sleeves to his shirt were coming down. And as I walked in, he got up from the bunk and turned around and did like this and said, "Oh, Marie, look what they've done to me now." And he looked so small and helpless and defenseless, you know. And I always remember that. And I remember Morris giving me his bracelet, and because I started to cry, which I'm not supposed to do at that time. I'm there for him. But I got tears in my eyes, and he immediately jumped to do something to make me not cry. He wanted to make me feel all right. And he said, "Oh, you mustn't cry, you mustn't cry. You have to keep this for me." And he took his bracelet off and gave it to me and said, "You'll never give it away, will you?" And I said, "No, I'll never give it away, Morris." He's trying to cheer me up, you know. Those are two things I remember.
She was sincere. That was the first thing that struck me, as well as some of the other men here. Usually the administration allows people to come in to view the monkeys in the cages, so to speak. And Marie didn't accept that. She was the only abolitionist I've ever met that was sincere, that wasn't in it to appease her conscience or anybody else's. She actually cared about us. What was the problem having Marie come in here?
I'm not sure there was a problem with Marie. In fact, there wasn't a problem with Marie. It was a problem with the concept. I'm not comfortable with the paralegal concept as it now is.
Within the last 36 hours, Tony Baer, warden of Mecklenburg, has taken the decision to ban Marie from the prison. It's another obstacle for the inmates who rely on her in their fight to stay alive.
I just made the decision I'd rather go with attorneys than paralegals.
The law is clear on that area, though. The attorney privilege extends to the paralegal. We battle that out in court.
I didn't say what I wasn't satisfied with the way it's going. I'm just saying the concept.
Well, what is your problems with Marie specifically? And I hear you have many.
Well, I'm not going to discuss that with you. You know, if I got a problem with Marie, I'll discuss my problem with Marie with Marie.
She thinks he's a con man, and she's right. That he would, if he could, he'd like to keep her out here as much as possible. But he's got the various court orders to deal with, so he finds other ways to hinder her access. He senses the threat that she presents to any prison officials, which is she gives the men spirit. And that works totally against what the administration wants. And when the men get spirit, they tend to be disobedient. And he senses that.
I think that's dumb. Anyway, you know, that's not open for discussion. You know, I'm not going to debate it with you. The point is, you know, I question that, and I'll continue to question that. I'm not at liberty at this point to discuss Marie Deans or any individual that comes in here in the legal profession. What they do with the inmate is totally up to their discretion as a professional, and I'm not going to discuss any other professional on camera with you.
Janet Clanton is visiting her husband, Earl Clanton Jr., one of the men on death row. Clanton has been in Mecklenburg for 3 years.
When I came to Mecklenburg as part of our legal organization, I simply called and said who I was and that I wanted to talk to Earl Clanton Jr., death row inmate, about an article I was doing, and there was no problem. There was no problem. They said, when would you like to come? I gave them the date. I came, I showed them my driver's license, and I went in. And I sat in the room with them. And, you know, they were very, very cordial. As time went on and Earl and I began to fall in love, I began to be treated differently. And then when we married, I began to be treated as Mrs. 123635. I wear the number for my husband. I'm not trusted. I'm treated as as I'm a conspirator, as an inmate. When he walked into the room, he was chained. He was handcuffed and chained, had several guards with him. And I was shocked because I saw a human being there. And like anyone on the street. And I'm not sure what I expected. I expected an animal. I'm not sure what I expected, but I was in total shock.
There's that ray of hope. And if that ray of hope wasn't real, I wouldn't let you believe that it was. If I absolutely knew that there was absolutely no chance for me, I'd encourage you to rebuild.
There was no chance for you?
If my chances were nil, I mean, of course, yeah, I'm between a rock and a hard place, but I'm not in a hole in the ground. I still laugh, I still cry, I still need.
It's very hard not to be able to touch him, and I find myself reaching out to him, and especially in a very, you know, quiet moment, emotional moment. I'll reach for his face or to stroke his face, and of course there's glass there. He does that. He reaches out too. It's extremely hard. Very difficult. I missed you.
I missed you too. Just think, if you had never met me, you would have never known me. All you would have known is what you read in the newspaper. What somebody told you about Earl Clanton. He's an animal. He's a bad person. He's a great, big, burly, ugly dude that kills human beings.
The future is very insecure. Sometimes I have the feeling that my husband will be executed. There's no way of knowing how you can cope when you know your husband's fried in an electric chair. I think just the horror of it and the gruesomeness of it will be more than I can bear.
During an execution, literally hundreds of people show up in front of the prison. Here, when we killed Linwood Briley, it was like 600 people out there. They were holding nooses. They gave Nazi salutes. Linwood was black. They had signs that said, "Fry the coon." This, of course, is not the image that Europe has of America, I hope, but it is part of America. And it's a part that stays quiet, that is not legitimized generally, but is legitimized by the death penalty. It's taking us away from the sacredness of individual life. It cheapens life. It cheapens the lives that we kill, and it cheapens the victim's life. You know, the great memorial to Linwood Briley's victim is this hideous scene of a society gone berserk, killing another human being. That's a memorial that we've raised up to his victims, and it's inhuman.
I think someone like that's sick, filled with self-doubt, guilt about their contribution to society. You know, what is wrong with being angry and demanding retribution? You know, the court in Gregg versus Georgia, the capital murder case, for the first time sanctioned retribution. Said people ought to be punished when they do something wrong. That's the first time it was ever mentioned, the word retribution. We've lost sight of that. People should get angry, because anger is an individual feeling. You vent it, and you're a better person for it. I think capital punishment does that.
This is a perfect situation for you. John Orenstein, a young man in New York, has done his cert petition under the supervision of the Legal Defense Fund, Jack Boger. And John is interested in carrying the case on. So we need local counsel who would be of some assistance but no major assistance, and, you know, administrative assistance, and then whatever
What was he convicted of?
Murder, let's see, robbery murder of Betty Jean Barker, 22-year-old white female stranger. Johnny is black, 24.
Marie, as a condition precedent to agreeing to help with that, I would want to meet him and make sure that I felt comfortable, you know,
working with him. Yeah.
And
I tell you what I'll do. I will write Johnny if you want me to, and tell him that you will be coming to see him at some point.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you drop me a line about who the other characters in the play are?
Yes.
Then I'll go meet him and get back to you.
Thank you, Carrie.
No problem.
Okay.
All right, Marie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
How did it go?
Great. He wants to meet Johnny and see, you know, if Johnny is somebody that he feels comfortable working with. But he will be. Johnny's easy to work with.
So you're there?
I'm there. Yeah. We have one.
This is a button I've pushed for 4 executions in the last 4 years. Red lights are on, contacts closed. If it was being an execution right now, I would be able to see the inmate slumping back in the chair. Blisters would be coming on his legs. Smoke would be coming from the body. This machine runs for 55 seconds. It'll kick off for 5 seconds and then kick on for 55 seconds. And the victim at the last 55 seconds should be dead.
When the judge read my sentence, told me that I was sentenced to death, I didn't care. It had gotten to that point. I was in a state of hopelessness. I'd pretty much given up on everything. Through the course of the trial itself, I was generally high from the various drugs. I was a habitual drug user. And it had gotten to the point where I just didn't care whether I lived or died. In fact, I wrote the judge and told him, you know, go ahead and kill me. Didn't make any difference. Several times I've come close to just saying the hell with it. Just giving up. What's it all, you know, what's it for? Why do I have to put up with this? The waiting. And, you know, it's for the courts, I'm nothing more than a piece of paper. You know, they don't see me, they don't recognize change in any individual in prison. And thanks to Marie, she's kept me fighting.
Now this might have some money.
Marie relies entirely on private donations to continue her work. That money is running out. She's in very real danger of having to close.
These are the envelopes we send out with our fundraising letters. We have a check for $25 from a woman in Nebraska. Everything helps. We've been funding for month by month. Then we moved to week by week. And I would say $25 puts us, you know, hour by hour, really. I have enough to pay my own personal rent in February, and I'm going to take that month and spend it trying to raise money. If I don't raise it, that's it. What happens if I don't raise money is there will be a lot of people on death row who die that we could have saved. A lot of unnecessary deaths. We can save some of these men, and we've done it. We've saved some. We won't save any more.
If Marie leaves, and it's very likely that she will, since there's no money, men will have nobody to find attorneys for them. Without those attorneys, the state of Virginia will kill them. They won't recognize that right to the appeals process. And they're going to the chair. It's as simple as that.
Outside. Two, hold it. 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 Outside. Two, hold it.
Well, Marie Deans told me yesterday she's now allowed back into Mecklenburg prison. Her friend, Joe Geritano, will know next month whether he can appeal. If not, he's almost certain to die within months. Earl Clanton, on the other hand, has had his death sentence commuted to life imprisonment. As for Marie, bedridden since September with a broken ankle, she carries on, ever hopeful, but totally without funds. After the break, liver transplants and the children who wait for them. Welcome back. Last April, you may remember, we followed the progress of 2 children waiting for liver transplants at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. Many of you wrote to ask what happened to them. But first, a reminder of the film. In Children Who Wait, we saw Rayot Haddad finally get her transplant. Jonathan O'Rourke, who was given only months to live, was waiting for his.
In 4 hours' time, 22-month-old Rayot Haddad from Israel will have the liver transplant that could save her life. After an anxious 3-month wait, a donor has been found just in time. Rayot's deteriorating so fast that without the transplant, she will inevitably die within weeks.
I hope until 5 o'clock she is good.
Yeah. I've just been in contact with our team, and the liver looks perfect.
Yes?
Yeah. So that's the next bit of good news for you.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
I think we're just on time.
Yes.
5 o'clock is going to be just fine. All right?
Yes.
How's she been the last? She's okay.
She's wake up and talk and want to
good.
eat.
Oh, lovely. Cry.
And cry. Yes.
That's a good sign.
She said, Daddy, Mommy.
Sure, if she can complain.
Yes.
You're quite happy. All right. So, right, we're on schedule now, 5 o'clock.
20-month-old Jonathan O'Rourke from Liverpool is also waiting for a new liver. Without one, he will die within a year, or probably sooner. Jonathan's been on the urgent transplant list for 2 months and is still waiting. Surgeons have already tried 2 conventional operations without success. Now a transplant is his only hope.
I don't know if you can distract him at all.
Wave to Jess. Wave.
Okay. Do you think we can set him up for a minute? Right. 1, 2, 3. Up you come. There we are.
Stick them to your bed here.
Who's that?
It's connected.
It's a pussycat, isn't it?
What does the cat do?
What sort of noise does a pussycat make?
What does the cat do?
Wave, wave, wave. Wave, wave, wave. Up.
Yes.
די,
זהו. הנה אמא פה, הנה, אני אכסה אותך בשמחה. תני לי אמא נשיקה, ראי אותי, את תהיי בריאה. כן, כן, בובונת, את לא תהיי חולה. כן, נכון. בובונת שלי. נכון.
For the family, it's goodbye. A serious shortage of donors means that several children die every year without this opportunity. For those, like Rayot, who have a transplant, there's a 1 in 3 chance of not surviving.
Okay. I'll take care of it.
Will you go?
I think it's best to stay here.
You stay here?
Yes, because inside of the... Is that all right? Do you want to say goodbye again?
No.
Okay. I think it's probably better if you stay here, because inside the doctors immediately want to put her to sleep and then do all the necessary preparation. Okay? Now, I'll come and find you, as I said, halfway through, and I'll come and tell you how things are going. Okay? Now go and get yourself some coffee. Come and have a cup of tea. Okay? All right. We take care of her. Come on, it'll be all right. Okay? I'll come and find you soon. Okay.
All right, sweetheart.
By choosing a transplant, Jonathan's parents know that he will suffer more pain and endless tests. They also know it's his only chance of life. The operation must come soon, so that Jonathan is in peak condition and capable of withstanding massive surgery.
wasn't too bad, was it? What a brave boy.
The 6-hour operation is finished. But although Rayot is over the major hurdle, in the next days and weeks, her life is still very much at risk. In Liverpool, Jonathan is still waiting for his transplant. He's been on the urgent list for 6 months, and time is running out.
You wrinkle your nose.
We see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel now, we do. But it's a long tunnel. So we've got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until we get out. And we hope against hope that we will win this race against time. I don't know if you ever climbed a mountain. I've climbed many a mountain in my time. You get to the summit. That's great. It's coming down the other side. You're in darkness. And I think that's what I'm scared of more than anything in my life, is the darkness on the other side of that mountain.
Then he heard Bertie. Goodbye, Thomas. You must be tired. Sorry I can't stop. We buses have to work, you know. Goodbye.
Well, of the 2 children we saw in the film, it was little Rayot Haddad who had difficulties. She suffered a chronic rejection, and after an emergency second transplant at Addenbrooke's, she died. That's the agony which faces all parents whose children undergo this operation. Transplants offer hope. They don't always work. But the O'Rourke family was luckier. Little Jonathan O'Rourke got his transplant, and after a serious infection and further surgery, he recovered. And indeed, he's with us here in studio, and so are his mother and his father, and Celia White, the transplant coordinator at Addenbrooke's. Mrs. O'Rourke, did you expect earlier this year you'd see him as lively as he is today?
No. To be honest, no, we didn't. We didn't really think that we would find a donor in time, but luckily he did. And it's just amazing. He's so well.
And obviously keeps you busy.
Very.
Danny O'Rourke, it was a very serious operation to put a little fellow through, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It's probably the hardest decision we ever made in our lives once we prepared for it. We thought we were mentally and physically prepared for it, to what he was going to undergo. But after the series of problems he had with it, we found that it was even, you can never prepare yourself for the unexpected. And after his second problem, he sort of hovered on the brink for 5 or 6 days. And obviously we were there and encouraging him to get well. But, you know, we always knew he would come through because he's such a little fighter.
Well, how is he now? I mean, are you always going to have to be very careful with Jonathan?
Yes, we're always going to have to be very, very careful with Jonathan because he's very susceptible to minor illnesses that other children actually, who has not had a transplant, would sort of throw it off. But he has problems with it. But that's neither here nor there. But the people I would like to thank is the donor parents, if they're looking in here. You know, only for the donor parents, Jonathan wouldn't be with us today. And I would encourage all parents to think about donor, you know, donating organs.
In order to provide the sort of life that certainly our studio is seeing this afternoon. Well, Celia White, little Rayot Haddad didn't have as happy an outcome. What went wrong?
Well, Rayot did suffer serious rejection in her first liver transplant, and it became inevitable and evident that she would have to have a second transplant to save her life. And after a lot of discussion and thought with her parents, they decided that's what they wanted. She had her second transplant, but she also had overwhelming infection, to which she eventually succumbed, sadly.
Well, there's a shortage of donors for organ transplants generally, isn't there? Even though all the polls show that people are more than ready to donate. What's wrong?
There's a shortage in all varieties of transplantation: kidneys, liver, heart, lung. I think it's we're just not getting together. We know that the general public, the vast majority, 80–90% of the public, think organ donation is a good, generous thing. We know we've got increasing support from the medical profession, but somehow the two aren't coming together, and we're still well aware that we're missing potential donors.
So it's a matter somehow of organisation. I mean, what about the donor card system? Does the donor card system not work?
The donor card system is a very good system in as much as those who carry cards, it shows an intent. But we know that only a minority of the population, for a variety of reasons, wish to carry an organ donor card. And it was never intended to usurp the spoken word.
So in the end, it's up to the doctor on the spot to ask. Now, I know the government is thinking of a voluntary code whereby doctors will ask the relations of dying people if they can be donors. But is a voluntary system enough?
I think it probably isn't enough, and I think the time is ripe in this country to consider a legal framework whereby doctors are required to ensure that an appropriate person speak with the family about the possibility of organ donation before support systems are withdrawn. The doctor's required in law to speak with the family, but the final decision remains, as always, with the family.
And why is it necessary to make it into a law? Are doctors reluctant to do it?
I think they're reluctant for very obvious reasons. They don't wish to cause, or think they might cause, extra distress. They know they're going to bring upon themselves more work. It's easier not to do it. But within a legal framework, I'm sure they would abide by that.
Well, now, they've done this in the United States, haven't they? Has it made a big difference?
It's made an enormous difference in the United States. In 1 year, over 30 of the 51 states now have required request, or as they now call it, routine referral, is law. It's on the legislation books of many others. And in New York State, they have already seen a 300% rise in kidney transplantation in this year. Now, it speaks for itself. The professional groups are obviously comfortable working under the law. The public support it because there's been this enormous increase in organ donation and subsequent transplantation.
Well, have you put these points to the government here? I mean, do they understand this, if what they're thinking of is merely a voluntary system?
Yes, they do understand it, and health ministers have visited New York State to see how the law is implemented, how it works, the general level of acceptance. I think there is hesitancy here in making this into a legal framework. One would prefer to work under a code of practice. But I think the time is ripe. I think we need the legal framework. Doctors in this country do not have to consider the law as closely as their American counterparts. Fortunately, it's not so necessary. But we do have legal requirements of doctors in this country, and I can see no reason at all why this shouldn't also be a legal requirement.
Doctors' sensitivities perhaps have to come second to the provision of the sort of chance we see today. Jonathan, who's merrily about to wreck our studio, I think, just at the moment, but certainly lively.
I think so. I think it can be a system that will help us all. And also, I think we should remember not only those patients who are receiving and requiring the transplants, for the families of the donor, the comfort that this act of giving and seeing children like Jonathan recover, that comfort is being denied some families.
Celia White, thank you very much. Danny and Janet O'Rourke, thank you very much. And Jonathan, thank you particularly. Well, that's all from us for this evening. We're going to be back with First Tuesday next month. Until then, from us, good night.